Being featured is brought to you by Lucky Horseshoe, A&R Electrical Services, and Patient Spirit Productions.
My guest being featured today is an outstanding teacher, a mentor, and the director of the St. Leonard's Boys School Choir. His name is Andrew Lokey. Sir, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Well, you are known throughout Barbados as the director of the St. Leonard's School Choir, but you yourself coming up would have been part of many choirs as a youngster. Talk about that experience.
Well, I would have been part of many choirs, but certainly I did attend St. Leonard's Boys School, and there was a choir then. The choir then was not all boys. We did share that the role with the St. Leonard's Girls School. But I did sing as a treble in that choir, and that was a very exciting time for us because we had an exciting lady called Shirley Arbor then. And she would have insisted on a very high standard of music in the phrasing, in how the quality of the tone and this kind of thing. So from a very early age, I would have had that exposure. I mean, I've traveled quite a lot too as well, and I'm there. In traveling, what I've recognized is that there are some things that we might not necessarily pay attention to here, but they have great importance there. Something as simple as phrasing, something as simple as where the voice is to be placed, and these kind of things. There's a heavy emphasis on everybody in the choir singing vowels the same way. These are some things that I from very early I understood. So for me, it was really only one or two choirs. In church choir, I would have sung at Whitehall Methodist Church choir. But for me, the real passion and real love for music and choral singing came when I joined the Sicilian Singers under the baton of the great Miss Doris Provençal. And Doris was not only my vocal coach. Doris was, I would dare say, my friend. And we were far apart in age, but the reality is that I spent many a Sunday at Doris Provençal's home watching operas and watching, these outstanding singers. And she would extol the virtues of all these wonderful singers, and she would. I mean, for me, all of them sounded great, but she would be able to pick down what was so special about this, the timbre of the voice of this one, or these kinds of things. So for me, I do believe that I was privileged to come in contact with Doris Provençal. And from there on out, as I travel to Canada quite often. I am a very brave soul. I would go to operas, I would go to classical concerts and what's not. And somehow I will find my way backstage to talk to someone, about this and that. For me, many people congratulate me for the efforts I've made with the choir, and they extol what great virtues you have with singing, and the technical aspect of singing and how to produce the sound and conducting the choir. For me, I don't think that I am ever I know everything. I will say I know some, right. And for me, every time that I travel, for sure, I'm seeking to learn more, and as I learn more, it's a benefit to the choir, I imagine, and to anyone who asks. It's not only St. Leonard's Choir that I would be willing to express any thoughts on music and singing. Yeah.
Okay, and let's talk about the culture now as it relates to St. Leonard's Boys School. Everything has changed now. Mm-hmm. Talk about the culture of St. Leonard's Boys School when you were there compared to now.
Well, when I was there, I think that at St. Leonard's, for me, the focus seemed to be a lot more on achieving at very, very high levels.
Okay.
And it didn't matter what genre or what you were undertaking, whether it was sports or whatever the case would be. I think and there was a specific, I'm thinking about friends now, Sam Peters and company, who there was a specific attempt to be, to master things. I think as we've gone on in the years, I think that the exams for me, CSEC, CXC, whatever, I think they have been, for lack of a better word, watered down. We had a lot more we had to learn.
Okay.
And we got it. We got it. Even if we were not the brightest thing, I think that people were willing to try. I think we still understood back then. I'm sounding old. Back then, we still understood that education was really the key, and it was really the thing that was for upward mobility and all these kind of things. We understood that. It was clear for me. So for me, I think that was the general difference back then. So even a very, very weak student back then was that very weak student still understood that he had to try, because it was that thing. And that's not to say that there's some children who are not trying now. I think they are trying, but I don't think that right now in the school that most of the children are trying. I think that what they somehow believe that it is that education is not necessary, and whoever is to blame for that, well, I don't know who it is, but the point is that somebody has to get into their brains that this is not having education really is I'm going to put it out there, is really committing passive suicide. It is not, that's what it is. If you're not going to be educating yourself, what are you going to do? You're not going to have chances to improve yourself in many things. You possibly will not have a job, you probably will not eat. So it is a slow way of killing yourself.
Yeah, it is.
And I say that to my students all the time, because that's really what it is. So for me, whoever I come in contact with, I always say to them, education is very, very important. It's very important. And even if you're not strictly academic, whatever you aspire to do, I know you hear people say this all the time, you need to do it with every fiber of your being. If you're going to be an athlete, be willing to get up in the mornings, come, do that, come to school, do it, and then go back in the evening, for example, because you want to excel.
Right.
And when we study the greats of this time and any time, that was the common thread. The common thread was that they were willing to put in that extra effort, yeah?
Yeah, and definitely you're not only for teaching as it relates to choir, you also have a passion for Spanish as well. I understand that you have fascinating results as a teacher. Talk about your love for teaching Spanish.
I don't know. They say that some people are born with language brains. Like, I guess I got one. But I actually love maths a lot, so I don't know. I probably got a mixture of some. For me, I was fortunate to have very, very good, very, very excellent Spanish teachers. The very first one I had was Mrs. Esther Adderley. What is interesting is that she treated us so well. So I don't know if it started as being a love for the subject. It was that this lady treated us as if we were her children. And as a result of that, you wanted to spend time with this teacher, you wanted to do well in this teacher's class and what's not. So I was motivated. And then as I went on, I came across people like Mr. Peter Corbin, and I went on from there, went on to the university and so on and so forth. So for me, I think what was the most stimulating thing for about languages was that I traveled.
Okay, right.
And I traveled very, very early to a Spanish-speaking country. I think we visited would have been Venezuela. And from then on, it was like every year we went to either Venezuela or Margarita, what the case be. Recently, we just changed. We decided to go to Panama now. Possibly looking at Colombia in a couple of years, and then Spain and so on and so forth. So for me, what was done in the classroom was now made real.
Right.
Yeah, because you were in the context, you were saying to these people, these natives, these people who spoke only Spanish, gracias, buenos días, and they understood, and you felt, especially a youngster, you felt, okay, well, I have really, this means something. And again, I think I owe a lot to my teachers. My teachers really had us, we learned a lot of vocabulary, and the classes were exciting and this kind of thing. Obviously, I had a nap for it. Who knew that? But for me, I've tried to pass on that same love and that same energy. It's an energy that to my students. Yeah.
Okay, and let's go a bit general now. Talk about the approach as it relates to working with young people right now, well, young adults right now. Many who seem to be resistant to authority or following rules.
Well, you probably don't know of Andrew Lokey, but I am one. I am very, very stubborn, and I'm not one to compromise really. I don't know if it's a good trait or a bad trait, but I'm not one to compromise. I think that there are standards. I think our country needs to have standards, and if these are the standards, and I am sold on these standards, I don't compromise. I don't. It doesn't matter. You can insult. You can be harsh. You can be whatever. But my thing is that this is what it is, and we need to get here. If you've got to be carried kicking and screaming, but then so be it. But the reality is that for me, there is resistance. And it is getting worse and worse. And I alluded to it in the beginning, and it has to do with the fact that nobody, we live in a very fast-paced life, and everybody wants this thing, everything like this here. But learning is a language or anything really. It calls for discipline. And learning is a discipline exercise. It is something that you have to spend time with, and we are not willing in very often nowadays. We want things to happen like this. Internet, we press a button and we get this instantly. But if to learn, you have to spend time with it. And for God's sake, I learn another language. You have to learn so many words. So you have to spend time sitting down and learning these things. And most of our people they don't want to do that. Most of our young children, they don't want to do that. It's laziness, it's unwillingness. It's not. I don't want to do it because it is too much. So for me, as a teacher, you have to come, you have a responsibility to be energetic and as far as it can be, and to make the class interesting, and then sometimes to vary the things, vary what is going to happen in the classroom. I'll tell you something. There was a boy who I taught very recently, and I saw him at the beach about a year ago. We used to call him the president, and this guy shouted at me, "Sultan, Sultan," and I was like, huh, okay. So I looked around, and that's what he remembered from my class. He remembered the class where we went outside and we were learning commands. Now, it really should have been Sultan, but I was not going to pick at it. But he remembered that we played Simon Says in Spanish, and Simon Says jump, and Simon Says, obviously was saying this in Spanish, but and he remembered that. That stuck with him. And for me, I think we have to be, if we are going to be as teachers, as anybody, we have to be impactful. We have to make sure that what we are teaching, it gets through to our audience, because that's really what we do. Any job you do, you have to do it the best you possibly can. And if it means going outside the box because you're going to capture a bigger audience, but then so be it.
Yeah. Well, we are going to take a break. Now when we come back, we'll hear more from Mr. Andrew Lokey. Welcome back to the show. Well, we have with us today mentor, teacher, and the director of the St. Leonard's Boys Choir, Mr. Lokey. Sir, let's continue by speaking about landing that job of being in charge of the St. Leonard's Boys Choir.
Well, let me clarify that at the outset. I don't see it as a job, really, because job connotes this idea that, for one, you're paid these big large sums of money, or some sort of money, whatever the case to be, and that is not the case. I think the payment that you get really is seeing your well, in this case, your choristers grow from strength to strength in musical dexterity. That for me is what we as teachers very often we got paid. But it just happened that at that point in time there was a conductor of a choir at the school. The choir was not as big as we had as before as now. Before it was probably about 30 or so odd boys, or the case to be, and possibly what they did was speech days and early morning assemblies and what's not. I don't want to say my vision, because really and truly it was a vision of myself, Mr. Purnell Farley, and some others, was to have this group of boys. It just happened to be 100 who would really take the music to another level. What we were very clear in our minds, though, that this choir was not going to be treated as this little special secret only brought out on speech days and on assemblies in the mornings. This choir was going to do more. It was going to really, because what we wanted to do is show these boys, for example, that you can actually live off of music. That there is some measure of not only validity, but there is. You can finance yourself. You can live off of this music. So as we started in 2008, we entered then, and it was just to see how the choir meshed. You know, it could have easily been singing somewhere else, but we entered a competition in 2008, the Mall International Christmas competition, and well, I want to take you through that, because at the beginning of the preliminary stage, the boys were, you know, they came and they sang well, you know, but the shoulders were shrugged and what's not, because they were not, you're not sure, you know, what are we doing here? But after the first round, and they had done so well, you know, we went on to the semi-finals. The shoulders came up a little bit more, and you know, the pride you started to see and what's not. By the time we reached the finals, and we eventually won that competition, shoulders were up. These boys had for themselves. They had seen themselves as stars. They were like, I'm really proud of what we have done over that period of time. So we saw the growth, and for us, that is what we want. We want to see growth. We want to see your growth in your vocal talent. We want to see your growth in your musical abilities. But we are very, very clear on this, that music is only the vehicle. You just happen to be in the choir. You could as well be in the football team or the tennis team or the cricket team or the case to be. Whatever particular discipline that you are in, that thing is supposed to help you to be able to spiral all through the other things in your life. So we are very clear on that. So we have put down a serious mandate on these boys that when you are in this choir, you will do well in class. Right. Now remember, you don't compromise. You can do well, and if you don't do well, there are going to be penalties. Right. Because and not because not that you don't do well because you generally have a weakness. We have systems put in place. We have some of the best teachers I imagine within the school and outside the school who come to help with these students. Okay. I actually want to single out here, for example, someone who has been in my life and the life of my students for a long time, Miss Sophia Torrance, who has been tremendous help. She teaches maths, but she teaches everything. She teaches life. And when people often tell me, you know, that, you know, you're doing such a wonderful job, I'm saying, you know what, there's a team. There's a team out there who is, you know, helping, who is praying and who is prodding on, who is trying to make, you know, the best for the students. I hope I've answered your question. Yeah,
of course. Yes. Yeah, and then I understand as well that you insist that these guys always do music exams.
Yeah. Well, throughout the year we have a very busy schedule. We sing at many events at Christmas time especially, but I always. I'm very well aware of around March and April. That's when the Trinity Guildhall music exams come. Yeah. And, you know, people will call and they will, you know, ask about, you know, can the choir do this or what's not. But my thing is that at that point in time, they need to do as less as singing as possible, because their voices need to be as best as they possibly can, because this is now the thing that they are doing for themselves to qualify themselves. So that at the end of it all, you know, I mean, we do from grade 1 to grade 8, that they're able to say, you know, if they have to sing at a wedding or what the case be, that they can actually, you know, say, okay, well, this is the fee that I'm going to charge you because, you know, I have gone through. I have paid for exams, I have qualified myself, and therefore this is, you know, I mean, it's their choice. They don't always have to charge money for whatever. But it's very, very important that they do exams to qualify themselves. And the thing about the vocal exams at Trinity Guildhall, in fact, most exams, Royal School as well, is that you can see the progress from grade 1 to grade 8. There's a difference. These wonderful tutors in Trinity Guildhall have set out a particular plan so that you can see that vocal dexterity. You can see the improvement in the voice as you go from grade to grade. So for us, that is important. Outside of the Trinity Guildhall, we also insist that, well, not insist, but it just happens that from the existence of the choir, we have also been challenging students to do exams, CXC exams in third and even fourth form. And the results have been outstanding. Again, one that comes to mind readily is Daniel Cadogan. He did both English and Maths in fourth form, got distinction in both. You know, so we have I think we have a formula that is working. Is it working perfectly? No, because we still obviously need the support of the parents. We still need the support of the children. They have to buy into what we are selling. Yeah. And some buy in. Not all have bought in as yet, but we continue to prod on. Yeah.
Okay, you also have opportunities to tour. You know, you mentioned one competition, but obviously you would have traveled outside of that.
Yes, it was 2010. Okay. 2010. I remember a group, Elaine Kennedy, first of all, the teacher of music, one of the music teachers in England. She came to the school, and she came just around the time we had just finished NIFCA. We had won double gold at NIFCA that year, and she had heard of the choir, and she came. And we were practicing at lunchtime. She sat in the rehearsal. This lady was in tears before we had finished singing. There was a song that we used to at the Barbados say kill. It was God and God alone. Yes. And I mean, by the time we had reached to the almost the middle of that, she was in tears. And she said immediately to me, Andrew, this choir must come to England. But what was interesting is that why we were coming. She said to us that she wanted to come to England because she wanted to help. She wanted us to help to motivate her boys to sing and to love singing and this thing. And we were confused because little old Barbados here, for example, we are going to England, which is known for singing. You have King's College, you have Libera. I mean, you have all these choirs, for example, and we are going to help. But nonetheless, we got there. It was a rough time getting there, almost $500,000, but we got there. And I remember the first time we sang was at the Salesian College, the church where they worship. The Salesian College was the college that had invited us, and it's an all-boys Catholic school. And as we entered the church, I think there was only 75 of us, and they walked up the aisle of that church. They walked up to a grand applause. These boys could not, boys meaning Salesian College, they could not understand where are all these boys coming from. But then when they opened their mouth to sing the Lord's Prayer, the very first piece, it was something amazing. It was I myself was taken back by this. It's almost like they had come into their own. It was like, we've come this far, and really we really want to go up more. So I think that was for me the point where I recognized that, you know what, this choir is going to be great. They went on that tour and they did exceptionally well. I mean, the responses were phenomenal, and we are at this point looking to go back in 2 years, 2018 to England. It will be our 10th anniversary. We want to do some major things that year, but one of them will be to travel to England again. Yeah.
Okay, well, Mr. Lokey, I want to thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
Pleasure having you here.
You're welcome.
Okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, the director of the St. Leonard's Boys School Choir, Mr. Andrew Lokey.